What is up, guys? It's Epiphanies here, aka Funny Mgtow, rousing the haters and finding myself in a state of approval. So this is going to be an in-depth review of the Venom movie. So this is going to be in non-sequential order, or at least sequential to how I added them. So I was in the theater and I wrote down a few things, and then post watch or post viewing I wrote down a few other things that I remembered, or the things that stuck out most in my head, things that I either thought were great or that really broke immersion. Now, I already did my other review of all of the pros that I could possibly muster, so if you want something a little bit light where I really kind of go easy on the film, for lack of a better term, then please, by all means, go to the previous one. I'll try to provide a link in this video down below. But without further ado, let's get into it. Number 1, just one bad guy. So the character Carlton Drake already exists in the Spider-Man mythos, and I feel that what we got on screen was definitely a disservice in that when you're portraying a character on screen, you really need to be of service to that character to some degree. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody out there, but I guess what I'm saying is that this is a character that somebody wrote, and it is very apparent by the fact that the mishandling of a character really proves that the people who are adapting the character to screen, one, don't know what they're doing, and two, don't have any respect for the original writer, let alone the character that they created in this case. But more to my original point of there only being one bad guy. Now, the film and the trailers say that, the Marvel or DC or the world has enough superheroes. So that meant that there needed to be a type of duality. There needed to be doubt and question raised in the audience mind when they looked at these three characters, that being Carlton Drake, Venom, and Riot, respectively. In a sense, starting off in the movie, we were supposed to look at them and say, who's the real villain? And then Carlton Drake and Riot, respectively, were supposed to perform an action or prove to be so grandiose in their evil that those two characters were the clear choice that in many ways were one and the same as far as villainry were concerned. However, that's down the intellectual rabbit hole. Here's a bunch of nonsense that actually made me laugh when I actually came to realize it. Why would Carlton Drake have a bunch of bleeding heart softies in his retinue? This is a cutthroat corporate environment. It's go, 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 people. Now, 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 people. So I could see him popping in on some random lab and just coming up to any given scientist, go, hey you, how are things going? Oh, they're going good. Well, how's this project that we're working on? How's Project Arcturus? Oh, we're making strides. And then him looking at the person, proposing something blatantly unethical to push the boundaries and the limits and to make more progress. And if they hesitate for a second or roll like toilet paper and say, well, that would be unethical, him saying, you know what, that was just a test, you're fired. It's sort of a just kidding but not really. So, on the surface, he's saying, oh, this was just a test and you're fired because I need someone who's completely committed to the job. But in reality, he's looking for someone who's, air quotes, completely committed to the job. Who are you? Doesn't matter. You have his job now. That would be the kind of person that he would. Those would be the kind of people, that he would surround himself with. He wouldn't have a bunch of people who are like, oh no, we're attaching symbiotes to humans. This is unethical. Once again, he wouldn't have those kind of people. These people would be recipients of a golden opportunity, and you'd have a array of different people of different minds about it. You'd have the person who would do what's wrong to maintain their job because they're thinking about their social status and their next phase of life, and if I stay here long enough I can get some type of tenure or I'll get a pay bump. You'd have the people who are thinking about money, I guess, to encapsulate that point. You have the people who are like him, who are egotist, pushing the boundaries of what's ethical and believing that their ethical really is this thing and having some wiggle room. But all we got in a lot of these shots were a bunch of shocked faces, so just to cheaply prop this guy up as the main baddie. I think I made my point. The other thing that made this character so blatantly two-dimensional was the fact that the character, if anybody were to quiz me on what field of science that Carlton Drake was an expert in, I would not be able to tell you, because it was never ever expressed or shown in the film as far as his character development is concerned. I still can't get over, I'm sorry, I still cannot get over the idea of the chick from Parks and Rec. I'm like, oh no, my boss is doing unethical things. It's like, where did you start in this company? Do they start everybody out in the human experimentation / death wing? Oh, it's your first day. Do you want to start out in the human death wing? Yes? No? I'll put you down for yes. You look like you just need a little encouragement. So for the interview between Brock and Carlton Drake, how is this Carlton Drake's first rodeo? I'd like to raise that right now. How is this his first rodeo? For a man who built this foundation from the ground up, he would have had worse journalists, literal people out to do a hatch job against his reputation that he definitely would have already been acclimated to. But he couldn't handle Brock's, gotcha questioning. And for the most part, it just seemed to move the plot along, the whole scene. It was just a mechanism which really bothered me. But to focus more on the two characters, Brock and Carlton Drake respectively, it was a failed opportunity, a missed opportunity to really show Brock's prowess, that even though he didn't have an IQ comparable to Carlton Drake, that he knows how to ask a question intelligently, or what question to ask, how to ask it, so as to get all of what he wants, or to, I guess you could say, pressure a character into answering out of frustration or answering out of desperation. So what I guess I am saying is that I didn't see Brock's intellect reflected in the scene, and I didn't see Carlton Drake's intellect. They both seemed like a bunch of petty, petty, petulant children. Brock did this solely out of the motivation of I have to do the right thing. And plus, you told me that I'm not supposed to ask these questions. And Carlton Drake I'm a big, important, super smart guy who built this company from the ground up. You can't ask me these things. You're lower than I am. I'm a bad guy, by the way, in case you didn't notice. Okay, so moving on to the next one. On a side note, though, before we go on to the next one, I would really love to commend the person who played the character of Carlton Drake. This actor really did a top-notch job. Every line delivery was just perfect. Even though the lines were lame, when I stopped and I took a second to think about the actor, he was not bland, he was not flat. He for the lines that he was given, for the script that he was given, as far as his character was concerned, he did such a really good job, and it really, I'm at a loss for words because he did such a good job. So, I wouldn't say that he failed. He completely succeeded on having a character, or giving some life to a one-dimensional character with a intense god complex. Once again, I can't praise this guy enough. He did such a good job. So, from that, moving on. Number 2, Eddie Brock is a loser. We're only on number 2? Okay, so Eddie Brock, within the spans of 6 months, becomes this total abject loser. And I stopped and I thought to myself, first of all, because of the horrendous cuts that were made to the film, I couldn't tell if it had been 3 days, 2 weeks, or 5 weeks, or whatever, or a month between his girlfriend breaking up with him and all that kind of stuff, because that does happen in the film, and then him having to move into some bottom of the barrel apartment in Chinatown, or at least that seemed to be the setting, given all of the places that were in walking distance to him. And I stopped and I thought to myself, wait a minute, did someone turn 2 pages at once? So there's that point. the bad time discrepancy, or the time discrepancy in itself. And then how is the guy who is the guy when it comes to journalism, when it comes to this hard-hitting investigative journalism, now just this abject loser? What metric are these people going on? What metric are the writers trying to communicate to the audience? Because there's a void, there's an absence as to reasoning of how this makes sense to the writers, and how it's translated on film to the audience. The reason why I make this such an issue is for two quintessential reasons. Number one, for me, is I don't like hearing the word loser in ratio to the protagonist. For me, loser is like the word poser or cuck. I do not use those words lightly. So if you ever on this channel hear me referring to someone as a cuck, that means that take whatever your definition is and then times it by rationally by 10. And that's what I mean to use it when I have found someone who is just a unremitting simp with a thirst that cannot be quenched with the oceans of 1,000 different planets in their favorite beverage. Secondarily, it follows this irritating narrative that the writers, the current year politics writers, who are trying to insert that into our movies and our comic book movies, think that they're so smart and they think that they're so clever, writing this narrative of the man having to prove himself to this woman. Eddie Brock has a freaking alien symbiote that literally gives him enhanced healings and freaking superpowers, but he's tracing after this woman who's just got a set of okay knockers, or even good knockers. I'll give her the awesome, exquisite knockers and an extremely pretty face. Let's say, she's a 10, right? So she's a 10, she's got awesome knockers and a slammin' bod. This man has superpowers that pales in comparison. He has the ability to save lives. A woman has the ability to entice an average male. This man has been put via his superpowers in a status above the heroine. She is lesser in comparison, but they want to twist the narrative to subject the superhero character, the main character, to this beta orbiter who's pining after this woman who, by definition of the film, is lesser than him. That is what is so grating about this word that they use or levy against the character Eddie Brock. Sorry. You're a loser, Eddie. Give me a solid freaking break. Give freaking laser beams is my point. Okay, so it is really late for me right now. I dearly hope that you'll join me for the next video. I know we only covered 2 subjects, but it's an interesting thing that, I stopped and I thought to myself, oh, this will be it. I'll crank this out, and I'll only spend maybe like a minute or 2 on average for each category or each subject that we're talking about. But it's just my nature that I seem to really, on an ongoing basis, extrapolate different things, or things that opinions that I didn't really realize fully after just jotting it down. For me, it was just like, oh, it's just a quick bullet point. But then as I examine it, and my best friend overheard me talking, and he adds to it, and it gives me like, wow, that's a really great talking point for this. And I end up going just extremely down the rabbit hole. I know that that's probably not the average person's format, because I'm like, once again, as I've said before, I'm not like TFM. I'm not like Happy Humble Hermit, who has this prowess of language, this ability to articulate things in one shot. I just can't do it. And I'm just some regular guy just trying to offer my red pills to everybody out there in my own way, to offer some Mgtow perspective in my own way. And my whole goal with this channel, I know I'm so sorry I'm rambling, is to do that. That I just want to, like, in a way, I guess I want to make my mark, and I want to have some type of relevance, because, I could always ghost. I'm pretty much ghosting in plain sight in my private life, but I have a yearning, I have a need to share my opinion with people who will be receptive to it. So I guess in many ways right now, I'm trying to find my audience. And I thank everybody out there. I thank all of my current subscribers. And even if I go through the rest of the history of my YouTube from now until, like, maybe the website collapses or what have you, God forbid I die or something like that, even if I do that, I leave something behind for someone to at least either get a good chuckle at or say, wow, that's really interesting, to put them on that path, and to provide wisdom and encouragement, dare I say. But with all that being said, please join me for the next one, where I'll either try to make it more condensed or maybe even more hyperbolic. We'll see how the format unfolds or dovetails, as I've said before. And yeah, so I'll see you guys in the next one. And for everyone who watched this hyperbolic, interminable rambling of the man you know as Funny Mgtow, aka Epiphanies, thank you so much. Thank you. Real quick shout out to Yorkshire Mgtow and Mgtow Light. You guys are awesome. I don't know who's really subscribed to me. I'll try to make a dedicated video to shout out strictly, and that's it. But for right now, Mgtow Light, thank you for leaving a comment in my last Venom review, and thank you so much, Yorkshire Mgtow. Please keep pumping out those animations. They are golden, and the world that will eventually become Mgtow thanks you for your hard work and your effort. Epiphanies out. Do it!